Hi everyone, Todd Unger here in our Election Authority headquarters. I have Andy Ramon here with me tonight. She is a professor of government, a political sciences professor at MCC and also at Baylor, right?
Correct.
All right, so she's going to kind of be our expert tonight as we take you quickly through the latest results in the Texas primary. A lot to get to on the Republican side, also on the Democratic side, the Attorney General race, both sides shaping up to be pretty tight so far.
Right. Exactly right.
Let's start with the gubernatorial race here on the Republican side. We've got Greg Abbott. He's already been declared, victorious tonight, the incumbent. Any big surprises here from what you're seeing?
Not really. I mean, Greg Abbott was leading the polls.
Yep.
He eventually got the slight endorsement from President Trump, somewhat endorsement from President Trump. He shifted to the right during this primary. And his policies have shifted during the right, even during the state legislative session. So with that, I think he is, assured that those that were a little nervous about voting for him, those ultra-conservatives,
Right.
they still supported, other candidates, obviously.
Huffines and West.
Right. But nonetheless, I mean, he's going to garner the most votes. It's not too big of a surprise. Yeah. I guess the only surprise I really have is that Huffines actually is leading Allen West right now. I thought Allen West would take that
do a little bit
spot.
better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know both of these, you mentioned this, but both of these candidates, Huffines and West, they kind of wanted to outflank him from the right
Correct.
if they could.
Right.
But like you said, during the primary, a lot of people would argue he kind of came to the left.
Right.
Came to the right a little bit
well,
more.
I think even before that, I think a lot of this started right when you were starting the pandemic and Governor Abbott's reaction to the pandemic and some of the regulations he made were upsetting to a lot of conservatives. Mm-hmm. And with that, you started to see conservatives speaking out, and then eventually Abbott came and started to go that more conservative route.
Sure. Let's break this down just a little bit further. I think we can look at McLennan County here. Obviously, a pretty resounding victory for him here in McLennan County. There's also Coryell County. If we can click on that one, let's see if it comes up. There we go. So no great surprise there. So kind of what, as you said, what you would expect with Greg Abbott. Now he will be the incumbent, and he is going to be running again in November in the general. And
Correct.
Then if we go ahead and take a look at the Democratic side, because I think there was maybe not a thought here that Beto O'Rourke wouldn't run away with it, but he certainly has proven that he did.
Right. And, it's name recognition. I mean, he has a lot of support from the Democrats, name recognition from the Democrats, a lot of money coming in from the Democrats, so it's no doubt that he was going to win this primary.
Yeah. What do you think about, I know we don't want to look too far ahead to the general, but it will be Beto, it will be Abbott. Obviously, the last time Beto was in a statewide race against Senator Cruz, I think he lost by 2.5 or 3 percentage points. So everyone was surprised that it was that close, I think, in some regards. But what do you think happens in November?
In November, Greg Abbott wins. I'm sorry, for right now, unless something completely just shifts and changes. Yeah. The reason for that is because, Beto O'Rourke has ran for offices several times and lost. Mm-hmm. And when he shifted to the left, during his presidential run, he made some missteps that not only upset conservatives, but upset moderates in Texas. So again, you can't tell everything. Beto O'Rourke might be able to take it, but I think it's Greg Abbott's to lose.
Yeah. You talk about the gun comment. Was
correct.
One that
yep.
really didn't play well in parts of Texas anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
And he really ostracized himself from any of the moderates at that point. And so we'll see how it goes in November, but I would still think it would be Greg Abbott's to win.
Mm-hmm. Abbott's.
Yeah, Abbott's to win, and only Abbott could lose it.
Right. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Attorney General's race on the Democratic side. You and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. Obviously, there's been a ton of attention paid to the Republican side of this race. But here you've got a few names, and I guess name recognition might be an issue here because you've got to get to 50%
correct
to avoid a runoff. It's not looking quite yet like that's going to happen tonight. Still some time to go. But walk me through a little bit what you're seeing here.
Well, I see that, and you can see where Garza's winning in these areas right here that are obviously heavily Democrat.
Right.
And so to see her at the top of the league is not surprising just based on her background, her history. So I mean, again, it may have to come to a runoff, possibly with Garza and Jaworski, but I think she might go ahead and take that primary, that Democratic primary.
Yeah, Lee Merritt, civil rights attorney out of the Dallas area, has been
Right.
involved with a lot of high-profile cases up there. Was involved with one here in Bell County, actually, as well, and pretty much all over the state. You surprised he's not doing a little bit better?
I'm
or-
surprised he's not doing better than he is, but I still, I had thought in my mind, Rochelle Garza, her history, she has a lot of
These
support
areas,
in
yeah.
those areas, and of course those are the only areas that have, we've seen a lot of outturn yet, major outturn. So it might shift a little bit, especially when you start talking about going into Dallas, that Lee Merritt gains support.
Yeah.
But I still think it's not surprising that Garza's at the top.
Sure.
I just don't know if it's going to go to a runoff.
Right. On the Republican side, this is a race that has grabbed a ton of headlines.
Right.
Grabbed a
Very exciting. Very exciting.
national spotlight, really.
Correct.
A lot of national attention to this. Ken Paxton needs that 50% threshold to avoid the runoff. Not looking like at this point that that's going to happen. Some people might be surprised by this right here, that there's a lot of talk that Bush would be in the runoff with Paxton, but you actually aren't so surprised about that.
Not necessarily George P. Bush, that name, the history that goes with that name. Unfortunately, George P. Bush cannot run away from that name. Whereas Bush in Texas used to be something that would garner you a lot. It still garners attention, but just not the support that it once did.
Sure.
Especially looking at the Trump dynamic between Trump and President Bush. And so President Trump and President Bush, that dynamic, well, that, and then of course President Trump and Jeb Bush, which eventually they, were able to get along, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
that history follows him. Plus, as head of the General Land Office, the GLOW, he had some missteps there. And so, and again, he's originally from Florida, so that makes it a little bit difficult for him as far as popularity goes, being, considered the true Texan.
Right.
So I don't know exactly.
Guzman, she's the former Supreme Court justice
She is,
here on the
yeah.
state level. And she is pretty, we were talking earlier, you think she could kind of be paved to sneak in here if it does get to a runoff?
If it goes to a runoff, right? Yeah, I think if it goes to a runoff between Paxton and Bush, and my chair is just a little bit. Sorry,
You're all right.
I'm looking all odd. But if it goes between Paxton and George W. Bush, I think Paxton during the runoff will have it.
We'll have it.
Okay.
Let me help
Thank
you
you.
just a bit.
I am super short.
There you go.
Okay,
All right.
so I think that Paxton, if he goes against George P. Bush, this is the thought, the thinking is that Paxton will win.
Okay.
Only because Paxton's been supported by President Trump, and Bush has so much baggage that he
Yeah.
comes with.
If Gomer wasn't running here, and you could see where he's doing, or he was doing better out at his, kind of East Texas area.
Right.
But if he wasn't running, there's a pretty good chance that Paxton would be over that 50%.
Oh, I agree. I mean, because Louis Gohmert is, again, that conservative who's been a long-time conservative and doesn't come with some of the issues that Ken Paxton comes with. And so Ken Paxton, accusations of bribery, Ken Paxton concerns about, his history and being indicted and things like that. So I think that Louis Gohmert sifting, as you said, some of the votes away from Ken Paxton and make it harder for him to get this 50%. But
Yeah.
you can see,
Here in McLennan County,
right.
doing a little bit better.
Correct.
Yeah, but still interesting nonetheless. All right, let's go and take a quick look at Congressional District 17. Pete Sessions, no big surprise here that he's kind of running away with this.
Right. I mean, if you looked around and you were just watching TV all the time, I don't know if we're still on camera or not,
Yep,
but if you were just watching TV all the time, or you were receiving information about this in the mail, you would think that Pete Sessions was the only one running, because he has garnered so much attention, and he's a good fit for McLennan County and the Republican conservatism nature of McLennan County.
Sure. We were watching this race a little bit earlier because you're kind of intrigued by this one. It deals with redistricting, which is a back factor in almost all of these state races.
Correct.
But this one particular you thought was kind of
Well, this is actually a state house district.
Right.
Okay, so state house district 13, 150 members in the Texas House of Representatives. So what happened during the redistricting process is some of those districts were shifted to make them even more conservative, and some of those districts were shifted to move what Republicans considered non-conservative out. Okay, meaning that they were not conservative enough.
Right, right.
So this is a new district created, this District 13. It includes about 60,000 members of McLennan County.
Yep.
And so this area, Angela Orr has a strong history in Itasca, okay? And
It's
so,
up a little bit
right.
further north, yeah.
So I think, I think it's obviously, I think she's going to win it, but it is a district that has been shifted to be a conservative district, whereas Kyle Kasal's district, where it used to represent McLennan County in the Waco area, it's even more conservative, and they've shifted him out of this region, opened the door to people that have never heard of him before, and he
Right.
might have a tight race.
And you were saying that, I think, what was it, the last time around, you thought there were 12 to 15 fairly competitive state races or something?
This is the congressional district
Right,
race.
okay.
Last time for congressional district races, Texas at that point had 36. We had about 12 slightly competitive
Right.
Congressional districts. Now we have 2. District 15 and District 28 congressional districts. And those 2 districts, and District 28 is competitive because Henry Cellular, who's the Democrat in that area, was raided by the FBI, and there's concerns about what's going on with his current status.
Sure.
So he's running against a more liberal Democrat, and if she takes it, then that might be a district that can open up for Republicans.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
something to think about.
We have, back in the control room, I know Zach, he might be able to bring up, I wanted to see if we could bring up the McLennan County DA race.
Right.
Because that was
Another
another
exciting
one.
race.
Yeah, it was. Especially if you've been in McLennan County for any amount of time. There's kind of a backstory here when Abel Reyna, lost the last one. And I know Barry's been in it was thought to be a tight race.
Right.
I'm not sure what it, and I don't know if we're going to be able to bring that up at any point, but bring up the GOP side of it. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. All right, here we go. So this is Josh versus Barry. Barry's the incumbent here. Turned into a very heated contest over the past 6 to 7 weeks. Are you surprised to see kind of this tally? It's still early in the night, obviously, and the 0% reporting, that's not correct. But are you surprised to kind of see these early voting numbers?
Not necessarily. Josh Teetons had support from Sheriff McNamara. I mean,
Sure.
he's garnered a lot of local support for his campaign. Barry Johnson did not. So that makes it very difficult of a hurdle to overcome, especially when you're talking about primaries. These are a primary election where you have just people voting single digits. These are really advocate Republicans, really strong advocate Democrats. And so I'm not necessarily surprised that Josh Teeton's going to win this, just based on the campaign he's had so far.
Yeah. And still early, it could still
Sure.
flip, but in a primary, like you said, that is a big margin to overcome.
Yeah, that's right.
Just when you're factoring in. who's
Especially such
actually-
a small area and
Right.
such a small voter turnout.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. I also, let's see, what was the other? Oh, let's check out Lieutenant Governor, Zach, if we could, really quick. Bring up the Republican side. I know Dan Patrick, obviously, running for re-election there. He is the incumbent. And we looked earlier, Patrick was pretty far ahead, but no big surprise there.
That is not surprising at all. I
Yeah.
mean, he was head of the Trump campaign here in Texas, and he has obviously been an advocate for conservative ideas since he's been lieutenant governor and pushing conservative issues. Since he's been governor, those issues, abortion, transgender issues, critical race theory, border issues, those theories that your ultra-conservatives, your conservatives that are voting in the primaries
In the primary,
really have a concern about.
right.
And so I see him just taking it.
Yeah. Do you a lot of people have thought over the years, when is he going to make a crack at
Governor?
governor? And I think a lot of people are still wondering that. Obviously, if Greg Abbott wins, though, in November, then he's got to wait another
Right.
cycle.
Well, I think, honestly, Greg Abbott shifting to the right more conservative, was not only just because of the support he wanted from Trump advocates here in Texas, but it's also because of Dan Patrick. Dan Patrick made a very strong showing as his lead as a lieutenant governor in pushing conservative issues. And Greg Abbott was then seen as left behind by conservatives, and not conservative enough.
Yep.
But I still think it'd be very difficult. It'd be a very tight, fun race to watch if Greg Abbott was going against Dan Patrick. That would be very interesting.
I know, that would be one to watch. And then if we just have lieutenant governor for the Democratic side, just want to make sure that we get that into and take a look here. So Mike Collier obviously ran before.
Right. Yes.
This time looking like he could be in a runoff situation here with Michelle Beckley, although he definitely has name recognition, I think, across the state.
Right, and 2018 was somewhat of an anomaly because so many people came out to vote during that midterm election.
Right.
It was rather unusual for Texas to have such a high turnout. And so, but Mike Collier came relatively, I wouldn't say completely close, but as close as lieutenant governor, that Dan Patrick had, as far as competition goes. It was closer than Dan Patrick wanted. He didn't necessarily feel comfortable with that. So, Mike Collier has that name recognition. He has strong support amongst Democrats, so it's no surprise that he's in the lead right now. Will he beat Dan Patrick?
Right. That's the question come November. Yeah. It's going to be tough. It'd be
very tough. Right.
Yeah.
And really, Democrats, as we talked about, have not won a statewide race since 1994. So it would be very difficult for any of these Democrats to win a statewide race, especially a midterm election where your turnout is relatively low compared to presidential election.
Right.
But nonetheless, you do have in that attorney general slot the possibility that maybe a Democrat could take it, but that would be. It would be a hard and difficult road, but it could be done.
Anything is possible.
Right, exactly.
Well, we really appreciate everyone tuning in. We're going to be back at 9 o'clock with a further update. We'll look at some more of the numbers, and then we'll see you tonight live at 10.